All right. Hope you guys having a great Saturday. Hey, man, June 15th, Juneteenth today. You guys, we got a great live stream coming up. You guys check out the Nick Driver podcast on air with Nick Driver. You guys, it looks like the image below. You can check it out on YouTube. Yeah, man. You guys check it out. Check out my music. You guys can buy my music on iTunes, Spotify. The live streams, man, they're more relaxed. It's more like us just kicking it together in your house or my house. We're just watching some videos, man. I have a show tonight. It is Saturday, June 15th, 2024. I have a show at the wonderful Fall Line in Zebulon, North Carolina. They have a wonderful night market there where a lot of people will be selling items, promoting their businesses. So you guys make sure you guys check it out. That's what's up, man. That's what's up. So what I would get into today is this video was sent to me. I haven't watched it the whole way through, but I watched maybe the first minute and a half. It looks pretty interesting. So let's get into it. This video is from Weird History, which I like stuff like that. I like weird history stuff. The name of the video is it's from Weird History, and it's called The Final Cigarette Ad When 13 Things Happened for the Last Time, man. You know what, guys? Let's get it. No mercy.
People come and go, leaving behind them a legacy of firsts, lasts, and every milestone in between. The very innovations we swear are top of the line will be obsolete in fewer years than we think, going from a regular occurrence to a distant memory in a Weird History video. But the last time someone rented a video from Blockbuster doesn't have to be bittersweet. Narrowing down the last event can be helpful in understanding why and how a historical phenomenon came to an end. So, today, we're running out the clock on some surprising historical final events. But before we reach the end, why don't you reach for that subscribe button? Then let us know in the comments what other historical hallmarks you want to know about. Okay, last one in's a rotten egg. In 1936, when she was just 17 years old, Helen Viola Jackson married Civil War veteran James Boland. And with the War of the Rebellion ending some 7 decades before, it made for quite the age gap discourse. Jackson met the 93-year-old Boland smack dab in the middle of the Great Depression, when times were tough for everyone, but especially a 17-year-old struggling to survive. So the two wed, more out of respect and convenience rather than traditional romantic love. And Boland promised Jackson she could have his pension after he passed away. Not one to look like an opportunist, Jackson never remarried, nor applied to collect Boland's pension when he died in 1939.
Wow.
And then in December 2020, Jackson, the last widow of a Civil War veteran, passed away at the age of 101.
Wow.
In the 18th century, if royalty got a bit too comfortable, it was customary to wheel out the old...
I'll tell you guys something crazy about the guillotine. This is something that I found out about maybe over the last 2 years or so. The last guillotine actually was just outlawed in the 70s, and it was actually from France, man. I don't know if this where this video is going with this, but I actually did a podcast with my friend Gina Carucci, and this was a fact that I brought up. Let's see what they have to say, though. Sorry, guys. Let's get back.
Old guillotine and relieve them of their crowns. It's easy for us to picture this method of execution during medieval times. It's less easy to picture the blade of a guillotine meeting a criminal's neck at a high speed the very same year Star Wars premiered in theaters. But that's exactly what happened to Tunisian immigrant Hamida Jandoubi, who was convicted of murder and executed by guillotine in Marseille, France in 1977.
Yeah.
The national razor has been gathering dust ever since. While animal species get all the press when it comes to being endangered, many languages have also drifted out of existence. One such Celtic language, Manx, was spoken in remote British areas until 1974, and Edward Ned Madrell, an Isle of Man resident, is listed as the final Manx speaker. Madrell, born in 1877, learned Manx as a boy, spent most of his life as a fisherman, and passed away late in 1974. He did make recordings of himself speaking Manx before his death, and many have attempted to revitalize the language on the Isle of Man using these recordings. Manx a lot, Ned. Western Union, stop. Got into Telegram game, stop. Way back in 1851, stop. They stopped after 155 years of faithful service in 2006.
Wow.
But while that was the last major carrier of telegram service, the conclusion of the telegram itself happened on July 14, 2013 in India. The government-run Bharat Sanchar Nigam Limited telegram service shut down due to the rise of SMS and smartphones, making a telegram redundant. Today, the only time you get to repeatedly text stop is when you're opting out of mobile notifications from a bill collector.
Thanks.
The Tower of London started out as a royal residence and was never intended to be a prison. But anywhere can be a prison if you're steadfast enough.
Anywhere can be a
the
prison.
tower would house famous prisoners such as Elizabeth Tudor and Guy Fawkes. A pair of brothers hold the distinction of being the last prisoners held in the tower. In 1952, Ronnie and Reggie Cray, which sound like a pair of henchmen from a Disney film, were members of an organized crime outfit in London's East End. But their criminal past had nothing to do with their stint in the tower. They just failed to report for military duty. While the Cray-Crays were in and out of jail for the rest of their lives, the tower
Cray-Crays.
retired from prison
Hilarious.
services thereafter, becoming a repository of documents and royal artifacts. Clerical celibacy goes back to at least the 5th century. However,
The last married pope. I'm not a Catholic, and I don't know anything about this. So I guess popes can't get married, man. They gotta just not skate.
marriage didn't become forbidden fruit until the 12th century. The Pope was bound by these same rules, though most candidates were either widowers or had renounced their married lives once they started sitting in the big chair. Pope Adrian II, also called Hadrian II, refused to give up his wife and daughter when he became Pope in 867 AD. He was already 75 years old when elected, and didn't actually want the role, having turned it down twice before. As a grim reminder of the importance of these rules, Adrian II's family was kidnapped and killed by Eleftherios, the relative of a rival bishop. Maybe this guy shouldn't have been the Pope. Adrian II himself would pass away in 872, and with his death would rise the age of the Bachelor Pope. Ellis Island opened its ports as an immigration station in 1892. The very first immigrant, Annie Moore, passed through Ellis Island at just 15 years old. And for decades after, millions of immigrants would pass through, hoping for a new life and a Starbucks on every street corner. But U.S. immigration policy changes in the 1920s would see less and less usage of the island. And in a massive 180, Ellis became a detention and deportation center before becoming a hospital and, at times, a training center for the Coast Guard. In November 1954, a Norwegian man named Arne Pettersen became the final immigrant to leave Ellis Island after outstaying his shore leave. He was sent back to Norway upon release, and the island now mainly functions as a museum. Despite its adorable name, there was nothing small about smallpox. The disease
Right.
spanned 3 centuries and ended the lives of millions of people. Eventually, through variolation, which basically means giving individuals minute amounts of smallpox as a treat, a vaccine was developed during the late 18th century. And by the early 20th century, vaccination had so sufficiently laid the smackdown on smallpox that talk of eliminating the disease entirely began to seem like a reality. The last time smallpox reared its ugly, rashy head was in 1977 in Somalia, with the last noted fatality in 1978. Janet Parker was a medical photographer in a building where a smallpox lab was held, and she unfortunately caught the last nasty case of it. 2 years later, in 1980, the CDC announced that smallpox was totally wiped out, making it the only human disease to be completely eradicated.
The only one, man. You guys,
Since their invention,
if you guys do check this video out, if you guys are watching this live stream, if you watch it at another time or another when it's not live. That's the only, I think it's the virus, right? That we have wiped out as human civilization. That's it. That's the only one. The only one we wiped out was smallpox.
In the 1970s, VHS tapes
Everything else
dominated
is
the
still
home video
alive and
market,
well, man.
just so long as you were kind and remembered to rewind. However, the end of the 1990s saw the rise of a shiny new competitor, the DVD. By 2001, DVD sales were fast-forwarding past VHS at breakneck speed, outnumbering them completely in 2003. By 2005, VHS sales were essentially non-existent. The same year, though unrelated, Viggo Mortensen starred in the David Cronenberg neo-noir film A History of Violence. And 1 year later, the film was released on DVD as well as VHS. This VHS would mark the last time a major Hollywood movie would be made available on tape. A History of Violence and home media technology? What can't Viggo do? By the 1960s, everyone had pretty much figured out that cigarettes weren't the healthiest things you could be sucking into your lungs. Medical professionals presented more and more evidence that smoking was causing serious health problems and made calls to lower smoking rates in the U.S. The Federal Trade Commission got involved and in 1964 forced advertisers to start warning consumers of the dangers of smoking. Then in 1970, Congress passed the Cigarette Labeling and Advertising Act, mandating that all cigarette companies must include warnings on their packaging. And as an added twist to the tobacco knife, it gave a date of January 2nd, 1971, as the last time television or radio ads were allowed to advertise cigarettes. Cigarette ads took their final exhale on January 1st, 1971, with Virginia Slims getting the final piece of propaganda on the airwaves.
Yeah, but Joe Camel came out there. I don't know about that. I don't understand that. I don't understand.
The last known slave ship arrived in the United States in 1860, about 50 years after Congress had banned the...
Okay, so it said the last cigarette ad was in the 70s, but I was born in the 80s, and they didn't ban smoking up until I was like... Yeah, we had Joe Camel. I mean, he was... I don't know, man. Maybe he wasn't smoking a cigarette. Maybe that's what they're talking about. I don't know. We'll check it out.
The importation of slaves. The ship, named the Clotilda, transferred roughly 110 enslaved Africans to Alabama. Matilda McCreer, a member of the Yoruba people, was on the Clotilda at just 2 years old. Initially accompanied by her mother and 3 sisters, McCreer was able to stay with her mother, Grace, and one of her sisters, Sally, but she never saw her other 2 siblings again. McCreer, who passed away in 1940, was the last survivor from that transatlantic journey.
Wow.
The Alcatraz Island became a federal penitentiary in 1934, and for the next 29 years became one of the most notorious prisons in the world. Home to only the worst of the worst criminals the U.S. had to offer. Alcatraz housed infamous gangster Al Capone, birdkeeper Robert Stroud.
On top of it being the worst place to house prisoners, they also had a Creed concert there. Let's keep going.
And Machine Gun Kelly, the gangster, not the rapper. By the end of the 1950s, an island fortress housing the world's supervillains was just too expensive to operate and maintain. The government closed in and removed the final inmates in 1963. The last criminal relocated was convicted robber Frank Weatherman. He boarded a boat with the last of the guards and set upon his exit. Alcatraz never was good for anybody. To be clear, when we discuss The Last Flight of the Conchord, we're not talking about the final episode of the HBO musical comedy show, though that last episode aired March 22nd, 2009. In case you were wondering, we're talking about the supersonic passenger aircraft that could get you across the ocean in 3 hours. But could it make the Kessel Run in less than 12 parsecs? Developed with cooperation between British and French engineers, the Concorde was designed to fly at Mach 2, or 1,350 miles per hour, getting you from Europe to the United States in about 3.5 hours. By all accounts, it was pretty bitchin'. Starting in 1976, Concordes flew from London to New York and to airports such as Paris and Edinburgh. The aircraft was prohibitively expensive, causing only 20 to ever be built. But passengers who could afford it were treated to the most luxurious service the sky had to offer, while you're ripping through it at the speed of miracles. The July 2000 crash slowed down the Concorde, but the supersonic aircraft continued to be in service until October 2003, just in time for everyone to realize how impractical they were. Hey, bodacity is rarely practical. That's what makes it bodacious. So what do you think? Which of these historic curtain calls surprised you the most?
All right, guys. Yeah, man. You're watching Nick Driver live stream. You guys check out if you have an opportunity. Go over to my channel, Nick Driver. Head over and look at the Nick Driver podcast. A lot of the videos are more put together. The live stream, we like to just have fun, kind of like us sitting around, chilling, hanging out. Yeah, people send me videos in. We watch them together. I'm learning about this stuff too as we're going. Yeah, you guys let me know what you're thinking. I hope you guys have a blessed Saturday. If you guys are in the Eastern North Carolina area, I'll be DJing at the wonderful Fall Line tonight. They have the night market over there. A lot of people come from different walks of life that have different businesses that could be beneficial to each other. You know, there's something that we all can provide that could be good for all of us, man. So I'll be DJing from 6 until 10 p.m. Hey, guys, have a great night. You take care. See you guys tomorrow, hopefully.